Right, so let's set the scene. So we're about halfway through March, you're probably coming towards the back end of your bulk and you've just booked Magaluf with the lads, so you want to start on a cut so you look absolutely ruthless on the strip. You know, life is good. Until...
You must stay at home.
So now you're stuck at home and you've got absolutely nothing to do except from sitting on your sofa all day, playing games and watching Netflix, with the only sort of program that you're following is one between two people fighting over some tigers whilst you eat far too much food. You finally get some motivation and dig deep into your cupboard to find the resistant bands you first got when you started training in your room alone, allowing you to flirt with the idea that you're not going to lose your gains, for about 5 minutes. So you get your pennies together and you go online to order some weights. But all that gets delivered to you is the bench because all the weights have been sold out, so you get very, very sad. You reorder the weights, they eventually come 2 months later, but no sooner as you've opened them,
followed later by the reopening of our gyms, swimming pools and leisure centres.
So now gyms are open, what do you do next? So when we go back, there's a couple of things that we're going to have to consider. So the first thing that we're going to have to consider is that of the delayed onset muscle soreness that you're going to experience when you go back to the gym. Something that every lifter has experienced at some point, but this will be the worst. So when you've been lifting for a long period of time, the DOMs that you get slowly decrease, but when we return to the gym from an extended period off, the changes in reps and weights used is going to massively affect your body. So you're probably wondering, Jake, how do I prevent that from affecting my training? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Right, so the first way that we can manage our DOMs so it has the most little impact on your training is by following an appropriate training split. It's going to be important when we go back to the gyms to actually regulate how much we're hitting each muscle in a week and when we're actually going to hit them. Right, it's just is human nature that when we've been deprived of something for so long that when we get it back, we go to excess with it. Like, you can see that when people are dieting, they have a long diet, 12-week diet. Second they're off it, food, just eat loads of food. But we're not going to be able to do that. I mean, you can do it, but it's just going to end badly for you. You're just going to burn out. Right, so I'll go into more details later about what I'm personally going to do with my training when we go back to the gym. But for week 1, I can tell you I'm going to be running a push-pull leg split. The logic behind it is that if we hit the chest on the first day back in the gym, we then have 2 more sessions and a rest day before we hit it again on the 5th day. So this will give us optimal time for the DOMs to fade away, if you like, and hopefully we won't have any impacts on our training. Point number 2 is that you're probably going to have to take more rest days if you want to limit the effects. So just picture that you're a newbie lifter going to the gym for the first time. Like, yes, you're not as motivated, but when you do go, you ache. You properly ache. That's the only thing that's sort of close to what we have or what we're going to experience in the next few days. So I don't know obviously how many rest days you're going to have because we've never been in this situation where gyms have been closed for 3 months, but just be prepared. Because if you don't take extra rest days and your body is aching, you're just going to have like suboptimal training, and that's just not ideal. We want to get big again. We don't want bad training. So point number 3 kind of fits into point number 2, and in all honesty, I'd hope that I wouldn't need to say it because we all have some sort of common sense, but it links into the video, and the point of the video is telling you what to do when we go back to the gyms. So I'm going to tell you. So don't try and lift what you lifted before, because you've lost muscle. You just have, or more than likely if you haven't, then fair enough. And if you go back trying to lift what you were lifting previously, 1, you'll most likely fail and look like an absolute tit, and 2, you are increasing your risk of injury significantly. And the last thing you want to do when you're going back to the gyms for the first time in 3 months is then be out of action from the gyms for another 3 months. I know it's a cliche and I don't really like it normally, but it sort of does apply, so I'm going to say it. Like, going back to the gyms and getting your gains, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, you will get your gains back, you just have to be patient with it. God, I hate living next to a train track. So point 4 will vary upon what weights you had available to you at home and what sort of rep ranges you had due to those weights. So DOMs have been shown to occur in your body when you do something that you haven't been able to do for a long time. So if at home you were doing 4 reps of say 15 with bench press with some 20 kg dumbbells, I wouldn't suddenly go and do 4 sets of 6 when you go back to the gym, because 1, your body will just not be able to do it and you won't be able to lift as heavy as you think you are, and 2, the DOMs that you'll get from that will just be horrendous. So if you slowly adjust the rep ranges, say you start at 15, next week 12, next week 10, then down to 8, and then you slowly get to your really heavy sets, you're less likely to incur such bad DOMs and you'll be able to see better progress overall. Right, so now we know how to manage our DOMs. The next big question, or the biggest question in fact, do we bulk or do we cut, Jake? Right, so obviously with it being summertime, although the weather ain't really reflecting that, it's understandable why you'd want to go on a cut and look ruthlessly shredded, because that is the one true goal in life. but I wouldn't recommend it at all when going back to the gyms. Like, obviously there's some exceptions. If you've suddenly gained 20 pounds in the 3 months since being off the gyms, then obviously you need to go on a cut. But if you do want to lose body fat, I would recommend nothing more than a mini cut for a week or two and then getting back to bulking, because we have all lost some size and we want to get that muscle back as soon as possible. If you just keep cutting, you're just going to become a much smaller version of yourself. And when you get down to that low body fat, you're probably not going to be happy with what you see anyway, and you'll want to bulk up again. Also, if you go on such low calories going back to the gyms, the DOMs that you get are going to be so much worse. Like, anyone that's been on a cut knows how much your body aches, and that's when you've been going to the gym consistently for a long period of time. Going back to the gym and suddenly being on low calories is a recipe for disaster. There is a possibility that you can go for the mythic body recomposition, and like, that is within the realms of possibility. Like, if you go from not having the gym to suddenly having the gym, you're gonna make some sort of progress no matter what. Like, for the first time since we all started lifting, we have the opportunity to make use of suddenly using that spike of the gym. So if you do want to go down that path, I'd recommend eating in no more than a 200 calorie deficit and keeping your protein at least at 1 gram per pound of body weight. Obviously you can completely ignore me and just do what feels right for you. Like, you're gonna see progress no matter what, and doing something is better than doing nothing. Just like, if you've fallen off a bit in the pandemic, that's fine. Like, no one's really gonna be motivated for 3 months at home workouts, because I don't enjoy them and I presume you don't enjoy them. That's why we all want to go back to the gyms. But just getting back on that first day and doing something and moving forward on your program is gonna get you some progress and make you feel a hell of a lot better. Right, now to end the video off, I'm just going to take you quickly through my new training program that I'm going to be running when I go back into the gyms. As I said earlier, I'm going to be starting with a push-pull legs just so I can ease my way back into the gym. But after I do that, I am going to be going on to a full body split. So a little quick disclaimer as I misspell it, this is catered entirely to me and my needs and what I want to do with my body. So if you do want to copy this, make sure that you do cater it to your needs. And obviously it's going to be changed if I get such bad DOMs that I simply can't work out to this extent. And something that I think needs mentioning is that a full body split doesn't mean I'm hitting every muscle group every single day. I think that's quite a common misconception with the split and why it's not as popular as it should be. Right, now on to some positives of the split. It does allow the separation of similar compound exercises. So for example, in a typical push day, you would be doing something, let's say like incline bench press and bench press on the same day. This allows you to separate the volume, and this volume is the same throughout the week, which is beneficial to you because the crossover fatigue that you'll be experiencing is far less than on other splits, which should ultimately lead to better lifts. Additionally, I think it gets rid of these half-arse sets that you have at the end. For example, in typical push days, if you end on triceps, I've noticed in the past that I do not hit these as well as I could be, and I've been running this split for about a week now, and my arms are already feeling a lot bigger. Now on to the negatives. I've only really experienced one downside of this split, and that's that the less daily volume results in me not getting as much as a pump as I would experience on other splits. And although studies have shown that maybe a pump does have some correlation to bigger muscles over your lifetime, I personally don't think that it's that big a deal, especially when you offset it against the fact that your compound lifts will be getting stronger a lot quicker. Right, now as we take a look at the split itself, I'm just going to show you day 1 and 2. I will upload the rest on my Instagram, which you can find a link to in the description down below. But on day 1, I'm going to be starting with some sumo deadlifts, quite heavy. As you can see, there is a rep spare tab. That basically means that if I say I want to do 8 reps, it means I could do a 9th with it, but I'm choosing not to. I'll then move on to bench press, a machine row, lateral raises, skull crushers, and a cable crunch, resulting in me hitting 22 sets of 5 different muscle groups. And although there is some crossover fatigue with like sumo deadlifts and machine rows both utilizing the lower back, I'll try to keep that to a minimum. So with the machine row, I will be more supported, requiring me to use my lower back a lot less. Moving on to day 2, you can see the exercises that I'm going to be doing, and although I'm hitting muscles on consecutive days, for example when I do OHP after lateral raises, it's quite clearly an isolation movement into a compound movement, so as to reduce whatever sort of muscle crossover fatigue I would experience on the day to day. Right guys, so there you have it. There is my new training routine. Going into the second part of 2020, as I said, I will be starting on a push-pull legs, but if you do want that full body training routine, it's going to be linked to my Instagram in the description down below, and I will make sure to post that as soon as this video goes live. If you did find this helpful and you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave it a like. It helps me out more than you could know, and subscribe to the channel. Peace guys.